Hi, my name is Khaled Chebat. I'm a Microsoft Developer Network Regional Director, and we're here today to talk a little bit about Sharepoint 2010, the new release from Microsoft. For those of us who don't know what Sharepoint is, quickly, as the name implies, it's a platform that we all use to be able to collaborate and share the knowledge and information we use in our daily work. So SharePoint itself is a platform on which are based multiple products. Our product عنا is a free product. Yes, if you have Windows Server, it's all free for you. It's called SharePoint Foundation. يلي شغالين على 2007, it used to be called Windows SharePoint Services. On top of SharePoint Foundation, we also have the SharePoint Portal Server, the SharePoint Server, يلي بيجي بالستandard and enterprise editions to be able to serve the different needs of small, medium and large organizations. And definitely it's a very broad set of features that we have in here, so I will not have the chance to cover everything today, but I'm going to be visiting some of the key features that I think are going to be exciting for each one of us today when we're dealing with Office 2010 and SharePoint 2010. The first thing that you're going to notice in SharePoint 2010 is the new interface. So in 2007, Office introduced the ribbon. Some hated it, some loved it. My experience is, if you spent enough time with it, you're definitely now in love with it. So why do we have a different interface on SharePoint? We don't. Today, the same interface that we're accustomed to على Office is also on SharePoint Server and on SharePoint Foundation. So when people access SharePoint, they will see a familiar user interface, which is the same يلي هن معودين يستعملوها on the Office Suite 2007 and 2010. Not only the interface has been changed with the ribbon, but the ribbon functionality now introduced new features which makes it easier for people to work with the SharePoint site, allowing them to access all the functionality in an easy way, directly on their screen, without the need to go through a lot of menus and without actually burying down into sub links the way it was, or it may have been before. So moving from the user interface, what about other services that were introduced? Those of us اللي اشتغلوا على SharePoint 2007 Enterprise Edition know about the BDC, the business data connectivity services that we had that allowed you to connect SharePoint into any application or back-end data you had. وصاروا اليوزرز اللي عنا على SharePoint فين يستعملوا هالinformation without the need for them to know where it comes from. And this is very good for us because it allows us to have one portal, one central point. People come in and they can deal and manipulate and access all the information in the organization independently of where it resides. The good news is, in 2010, this functionality is no longer strictly على an Enterprise Edition. So starting with the Foundation, remember Foundation is for free. So starting with the Foundation, we already have the business integration through what we call the Business Connectivity Services, BCS. So Business Connectivity Services, in a nutshell, allows you to integrate external data into your SharePoint. You will be able to see it in your lists. You will be able to use the information, look it up, link it, add it, manipulate it through SharePoint as if it were SharePoint data. You can also search for information through the search integration on SharePoint. Great. That's for the information. But what about other elements of our environment? For example, applications that you have been writing in Access for a while. Is there a way I can integrate them into our SharePoint server? The answer is yes. Starting with SharePoint 2010, you can actually connect your SharePoint into your Access database, and you will be able to connect and retrieve the Access database information directly from within SharePoint. So this way, your users on SharePoint will be able to interact with your application, which is an Access application, through SharePoint without the need to deploy specific applications on their client machines. Not only Access. The next that we have integrated in SharePoint is Visio. And Visio comes in two ways integration. The first one is, in Visio Office, Visio 2010, you can actually create SharePoint workflows. So you can design the SharePoint workflow in Visio 2010, and then you can take it, export it into the SharePoint Designer for deployment on your SharePoint server. That's great, that's nice. It allows our business users to be able to design their own workflows without the need to know about the technical elements of the platform that we have. But it doesn't stop in here. With the Visio Business Services on the SharePoint server, you can visually see where you stand in your workflow. So you can have your diagram visually showing you where, at which stage in your workflow you are, what is the current state, and what happened to the previous states, all in a visual way, so users will be able to easily spot what is the current state of affairs when it comes to their workflows. Good. What about other functionalities that are not strictly business? Everybody today has some kind of social networking happening in their lives. Facebook, Twitter, I don't know what you're working with. So can we integrate this with SharePoint? And the answer is yes. We have a lot of rich functionality which has been added to SharePoint that allows you to integrate it with the social networks and have social networking features on your internal network. Because again, SharePoint is a collaboration point. People on your internal network will be able to communicate to each other and will be able to integrate all the social networking features into their sites, starting from their personal site on my site or on the portal itself, where everybody in the organization will be accessing and interacting. To close the SharePoint 2010 and new features, we're going to talk a little bit about the Office web apps. The Office web apps are not strictly SharePoint. So you can actually use the Office web apps on the web. But what if I have an internal organization and I would like to be able to extend this functionality to my internal network? I don't want users to connect to the internet and to put the files on the internet to be able to access the web apps. Starting with Office 2010 and SharePoint 2010, you can actually deploy the Office web apps functionality on your internal network, allowing your users on your network to access all the Office documents, manipulate them, preview them, work with them, collaborate with others, all through their web browser using the Office web apps. And with this, we conclude our first run on SharePoint 2010 new features. Thank you for your time.